Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday night, September the 25th, 2024. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So, Tom, let's encourage everyone to hit that like button to help us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. The show starts at 8, but the show is uploaded to social media platforms at 9 after the show concludes. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're here watching the show live, invite a friend, a family member, or a co-worker so you guys have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, and for those out there, I'm still recovering from an eye injury, so that's why my studio is a little dark. I want to thank everyone for their prayers for while I've been dealing with this ordeal. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring information about the Black community to social media, the most progressive show on social media, on YouTube, on X, on Twitter, and Twitch, which are the platforms that we stream to. So, with that being said, Tom, let's get started. What's our
all
first
right.
story?
I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. We have a jam-packed show as usual. I want to give a shout out to cousin Audrey K, who is on the chat line, of course, also to Uncle Afar, our good friend and compadre out in Austin, Texas. And for those of you who have not, go ahead and get on the chat line. We definitely want to hear your comments and your thoughts on our stories for tonight because this show is for you. We are just the channel. So thank you. And then also make sure that you give us a like on that so this information can be spread around to other folks who want to be the most informed people in their network. So we're going to get to the show. First, like to give a condolence. I mean, we've been doing a lot of condolences. Jimmy, this is probably someone that a lot of folks may not know unless you are a very, very big Prince fan. One of his collaborators, dancer, choreographer, and singer, Cat Glover, for those of you who are big Prince fans today, just died, passed, and became an ancestor at the age of 60 years old. Cat Glover originally became known on national television through the popular show Star Search alongside her dance partner, Patrick Allen, in the duo known simply as Pat and Cat. Their act was the very first to achieve an absolute perfect score on the show. She became better known, though, for her work with Prince starting in the late 1980s. She choreographed and appeared in several of his videos and his concert film Sign of the Times, traveled with him as a vocalist and dancer on the
Okay.
Sign of the Times tour, the Love Sexy tour, and rap on both the Black album track Cindy C and Love Sexy song Alphabet Street. Following her work with Prince, she released an EP, Catwoman, in 1989, and subsequently she worked in London and Los Angeles, recording her own material as well as continuing her choreography and performing. The cause of death has not officially been released. And on this picture, she is the beautiful young lady to the far left. So for those of you who are music fans who may know her, those of you who are big Prince fans who may have seen her at a concert or otherwise, definitely want to send our condolences out to the entertainment community and the Glover family. So those, fortunately, will be all of our condolences for this week. However, Jimmy, let's kind of change the corner because now that we're kind of at least getting into the rhythm of at least my um, most favorite season of the year, which is the fall, primarily because of football. We've been talking a little bit of football with our fans, so we're not going to disappoint this week and talk about what's going on. Now, Jimmy, I know you only pay attention and watch the Cowboys, and we can definitely talk about the Cowboys, but there may be another game or two that you may be interested in talking in. Of course, this past weekend, they played the Baltimore Ravens, and it looked like it was going to be as bad of a blowout as it was to the New Orleans Saints. And then in the fourth quarter, things began to shake out a little bit, Jimmy. They at least made the score look a little bit more respectable, but they're still 1-2.
Yeah, Tom, it's just it's really more about Baltimore than the Cowboys. The teams often, good teams, not great teams, but good teams in the NFL, often let up off the pedal in the second half when they accumulate a nice lead in the first half. You see that quite frequently where they basically are just holding on to run the clock out and win the game. And so this is pretty much a case of that. I do believe that if Baltimore really has stuck to their what made them successful in the first half, which is running Derrick Henry really up between the tackles, that they had stuck to that game plan, that they probably would have scored a few more points in the second half. They kind of got away from it. They went more to try to not lose the game and go to more of a prevent sort of a defense. Let the Cowboys move the ball, even let them score, knowing that each one of those scores are going to take time. So they definitely let up a little bit and let the Cowboys back in, but not enough to let the Cowboys win. So um, I wouldn't put too much stock into that score. It shows that the Cowboys are capable of moving the ball and of scoring. Whether they can do that against a first half defense, first string defense, when everybody's trying their best and the best performance is being displayed, we have yet to see that. Um, Scores in the second half during garbage time, I don't really count too much because I understand what's at play. Uh, where teams are just trying to hold on to a lead and run the clock out, and let you do just enough where that happens where you're not going to threaten victory. So the Cowboys didn't really threaten a victory. Maybe if they had converted on the 2 point conversion on those two scores, maybe then the game would have been different. Maybe they would have had a chance to take a lead or tie the game. But since that didn't happen, they really wasn't. It just wasn't enough time for them to mount a third drive in order to put themselves in position to win the game. So,
Well,
um,
I,
so
I,
for that reason, I don't put too much stock in close in keeping the game close or making the score respectable. The game was really lost in the first half, and when it really counted, we saw how the Cowboys played. They really stunk it up. So,
well, my thoughts are this, and I'll keep them brief. The Cowboys showed over the last two games that they absolutely have no run defense, uh,
none.
cannot stop a a slug running through their defensive line, Jimmy. And on top of that, what makes matters worse in terms of not being able to stop the run game, the inside game, they also have no run game on offense.
That's
So,
correct.
I mean, they cannot control and or manage a game, unfortunately, Jimmy. And I don't know what all in looks like to Jerry Jones, but this don't look like the result of anyone who would call anything all in. But one thing I found that I wasn't aware of, Jimmy, is that they had Dalvin Cook on the practice squad, which I was completely unaware of. He hasn't played in the games yet, and I think Jerry just talked about this past week that he wasn't going to be playing in this upcoming Thursday night game with the Giants. Now, Dalvin Cook used to be all-pro caliber, played with the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if he had injury issues or what. I just literally found out today that Dalvin Cook was on the practice squad, Jimmy. But all that being said, you know, a team that the Cowboys lost to Cowboys. The one team that the Cowboys did win in commanding fashion, the Cleveland Browns, were beat by the New York Giants this past week. And it just goes to show how you really don't know what a team is until you really get through some teams that have some strong playoff potential. The Philadelphia Eagles just beat the Saints. Very defensive game on both sides of the ball. Eagles, I think, have gotten better from the last season into this season. And quite frankly, given how the Saints literally blew out the Cowboys and how the Eagles pretty much shut the Saints down, who just ran all over the field with the Cowboys, they've got issues. And on top of that, Jimmy, you know, I watched the Washington Commanders Cincinnati Bengals game, and I know the Bengals usually get off to a slow start, but you know, The Commanders may give the Cowboys a little competition this year. They, have, I guess, really last year's Heisman winner playing at quarterback, and the kid looks pretty good. The rookie looks pretty good. Matter of fact, I would almost suffice it to say that he played just as good in this past game than Dak probably played in this game against the Ravens.
Well, Tom, I did watch the Saints and Eagles or the KFC Chickens play, and they both look rather average, or I'm not gonna say mediocre because they both play really good defense, but neither one of them put up a lot of points. Neither one of them demonstrated a high octane offense, which we were expecting from the Saints, and they both show what potentially can be done when you play decent defense against both of them. You can hold them in check and put yourself in position to win the game if you can score 21 points and keep them under 21. The other thing, Tom, is that the Cowboys, like many other teams in this league, have made a drastic mistake that's going to cost them for the next 4 years under this Dak contract, which is believing that quarterbacks make the difference in this league. There was a time when we fell in love with the Cowboys during the 90s, when the offense was more about the running game and the offensive line than the quarterback and the wide receivers. Somehow the game became a wide receiver and quarterback kind of a league, and that's where the big money is being spent on those two positions, and the running back position is kind of being relegated to the back of the bus. And that's a mistake, because if you look at to me, the teams that are going to make the most difference in this league as far as winning, look at teams that run the ball and they have 100-yard rushers. I believe so far 18-3 in this league. And the other thing that I've noticed, Tom, is that teams don't really prepare defensively for a heavy running game. It's almost like the entire league is kind of lost their ability to run defense. And so the teams that do run the ball, like Baltimore, have the potential to be successful and go far in this league. The Saints do a decent job of running the ball. They ran it down our throats. The Cowboys definitely don't have a clue how to run defense between the tackles, because teams run all over them. But the Cowboys aren't the only ones that can't run defense. There are other teams that are also in that boat. And the teams that really think that this is a quarterback league, a lot of these high-priced quarterback times are demonstrating to be a big letdown, including ours, a $60 million duck. We could have gotten someone in college. I would have gotten someone out of the draft, even if they were just half of what Dak was. I don't know if the results would be any different than what we have right now with a $60 million quarterback on the field, and we still can't win.
Well, the problem is this, Jimmy. Quarterbacks are going to get paid. The owners decided some years ago that they wanted more points on the field because that's what the fans wanted. And so as a result, they began to change the rules so that it would be more of a pass-driven league as opposed to a run-driven league. And quite frankly, we have seen the results of that. For what it's worth, you have a Trevor Lawrence who, if you look at his results, he came out very, very highly touted, was supposed to be a next-generation quarterback. He just got the bag from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but his results are very mediocre. I can't disagree with you in terms of the amount of money that Dak Prescott paid, but unfortunately, for those of you who feel otherwise, that is the market that the quarterback position is commanding. And, obviously with wide receivers, you need someone who is going to stretch the field because, quite frankly, that is where the league is going right now. But, when you see teams that are going to the Super Bowl, that being the Kansas City Chiefs, that being the San Francisco 49ers, that being the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago, even the Detroit Lions that were one game away from that Super Bowl, that ultimately what the Cowboys are really missing right now that they used to have during their championship years, they were very rugged in the interior line on offense and defense. Not to say that you didn't need a solid running back, but when you can't protect your quarterback, when you can't open up holes for your running back, whether he is a superstar or you're doing running back by committee, Jimmy, you're going to have problems. You cannot control the game if you do not have a run game. And I've been saying for years that the Cowboys have not been investing in depth in the interior line on the offensive side or the defensive side of the game. And they have no player makers with the exception of CeeDee Lamb on their team. Not one.
Well, unfortunately, Tom, wide receivers may stretch the field a little bit, but the reality is that in order to get those receivers open, a lot of times, being able to freeze the safeties and linebackers that are dropping into coverage, you need a running game to do that. That play action fake becomes very important for the passing game. So if you can't run the ball, like you said, all the things you said are correct. If you can't run the ball, you're not going to be able to control the clock, control the turnovers, control the game and then open the field up with the play action fake so your wide receivers can do some damage. When you become one-dimensional, years ago, there was another team that was very successful being one-dimensional until they got to the playoffs. And that was the Houston Oilers when they had Warren Moon. They would move the ball up and down the field. They would score a lot of points. They had a great receiving core and a great quarterback. But come playoff time, they could never quite get over the hump because they couldn't run the ball. So running the ball is going to become very important. So we'll see which teams become successful at running the ball during the course of the year and stick to it, because those are the teams that are going to go far into the playoffs, because teams today don't really practice and prepare for a really tough running game. They're just not used to teams sticking to the running game because the league has become such a quarterback-centric game. So everyone's really trying to plan on how to stop the other team's quarterback.
One of the exceptions that I will bring out is the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who can throw, but they are a pretty rugged, I don't want to say defense-oriented team. They fell apart last year in the second half of the season, but they do have a pretty strong run game. They go run.
When they stick to it, Tom, that is correct. They have the ability to have a good run game when they stick to it.
We will see what the defense does this year. The jury is still out on that. If they can prevent Nick Sirianni from trying to be too cute and talking about he has confidence in his team and not taking the doggone points when you should take the doggone points, there's no reason that game should have been as close as it would if he would have just took the doggone point, kicked the field goal when you got the field goal.
Well, that's true, Tom, but they have an identity. They stick to it. And so, like I said, I think if they concentrate a little bit more on their running game, they will be a successful team. The Saints, the same thing. They're pretty much a run-centric team, which is good. They had some success on the field, running the ball and passing the ball, because, like I said, if you can run the ball successfully, you can open things up with the play-action fake for your wide receivers. And teams that run the ball well are going to do well this year. That's my prediction, as teams have focused far too much on the passing and coming up with schemes to stop quarterbacks, when the reality is that the teams that run the ball are going to end up in the Super Bowl. So we'll end up with a Super Bowl, Tom, not with two teams that can put up 30-plus points,
Agreed.
but with two teams that will put up 15 to 20 points, control the clock, run the ball, and have really good run defenses and decent pass defenses.
Which San Francisco and Kansas City both had. I think they were number 1 and number 2 in the league in defense last year. We got a couple of other folks on the chat line. Want to give a shout out to Brother Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire. Good evening, my good brother. Good to see you. Miss Tanya, thank you for joining us as well. Jet Bandit, and I know who that is. That is our good friend and brother, Mr. Wayne Green, who is joining on the chat line, I think, for the first time. So I know he's going to have some conversation.
We have a newbie.
Yeah, he says,
welcome to the channel.
Yeah, Wayne, welcome. He says, do you think the Cowboys are a legit playoff team or an imposter tied into this? How much do you think the front office is a part of the problem? The front office is the problem.
Well, they are definitely imposters. They may make the playoffs, but like I said, when you get to the playoffs, there's two types of teams. They're piranhas and they're bait. And the Cowboys are definitely bait. They've been bait for a while, disguising themselves as piranhas, but they really aren't. They're not that good. They haven't been that good. They beat up on weak teams, which you're supposed to do. They are about 500 against decent teams, and they get pushed around against a great team. So that's who the Cowboys are. The best thing for the Cowboys is the scheduler who can give them a friendly schedule each year. But yeah, they're in Forest. Who's the problem? The problem is the part of it is the front office, Tom, but it's a front office that somehow keeps believing that resetting the market at certain positions, paying big contracts. I don't think we ever get any performance out of a player on a big contract. Keep them hungry, chasing the big money. That's when you get the most productivity out of them. And once their 5 years are up, let them go. You have to be disciplined.
Gotcha, Jimmy. Let's. It is now 8:20, a little bit past quarter past the hour. So we're going to go into our music contest. The first music contest for the day. Either identify the artist of record or the official title of the song. The first person who gets either of them gets a point. If you get both of them, you're going to get 2 points. Jimmy has promised that at the end of this year, whoever wins this contest is going to get something. I have no idea.
Something really nice, Tom. Make it worth your while.
All right, good deal. So let's start out with the song contest.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Here we go.
Steer it together. Since I've got you on my mind, ooh, yeah. And now you are here. I said it's so clear to see what we could do, baby. Just me and you. Come on and steer it up, little darling. Steer it up. Come on, baby. Come on and steer it up, little darling. Steer it up. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right, we've got about 30 seconds.
30-second clock has begun, people. Start typing.
All right, the responses are coming in. Either the artist and or the name of the song. All right, we have about 15 seconds left. All right, we are almost out of time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.5, 1.5.
Go ahead and call it, Tom.
All right, that's it. Ding, ding, ding. All right, it's over with, folks. So we are going to let me see.
Did we not get any correct answers?
Well, I was waiting for someone to. We got the artist of record. But I was waiting to see if somebody was going to identify the name of the song, and we got one. It looks like Miss Tanya was the first one to get the artist of record, which is Bob Marley. And there was only one person who even got the name of the song correct, which is Miss Marion Square. What some folks would call Stir It Up, or what I guess they were called Steer It Up.
Yes, because of the accent.
Yeah. So
we got 2 winners?
Yeah, we got Miss Tanya and Miss Marion.
All right, congratulations to both.
All right, so let's go ahead and get to the, somebody said Little Darling. Well, I don't know why she said Little Darling, but okay. Let's go ahead and get to our stories, because we are going to be pretty tight on getting our stories in. If not, we may have to push them out to next week, Jimmy. All right. Talking about, before we even talk to the sports, we got one very brief update we won't spend that much time on, but it's a follow-up story that we've been tracking for the last month. It looks like the Texas Attorney General's attempt to overturn the gun ban at the state fair of Texas has officially failed. A Texas appeals court recently denied state Texas State Attorney General Ken Paxton, his emergency request to block the Texas State Fair from a new gun ban. The Dallas County judge ruled during an injunction hearing that State Fair's new firearm policy will stay in place. Paxton requested a court to enforce an emergency order to prevent the State Fair from banning guns from the fairgrounds. It opens this upcoming Friday, by the way, people. In its documents, attorneys for the state doubled down on their argument that because the State Fair leases the fair park from the city to host its annual event, the decision to ban guns from the fair park was an action taken by Dallas and with city officials' consent. State law forbids government entities from banning guns on government-owned or leased properties. A week before the injunction, interestingly enough, Paxton withdrew a 2016 legal opinion that would have contradicted his suit against the city of Dallas. He wrote that at the time, the political subdivisions such as Dallas would not be held responsible for a private entity choosing to ban guns from government-owned property. Fair organizers maintain their organization is a private nonprofit, not a government agency, so it was lawful in their banning of guns, which was done because of a shooting that occurred in 2023 at the Fair Park of Texas. So for those of you who may be in the DFW area, Texas area, it looks like there will be no eligible people to carry guns unless they are law enforcement officers. So for those of you who are tracking this story along, just wanted to get the latest update on that for those who are interested.
Bad decision, Tom.
Well, I think there are going to be a lot more people who will feel safer, whether they are safer or not. I think they feel safer with just law enforcement having guns as opposed to 2,000 people because they got a gun permit.
Now, that ruling is not going to stop the criminals and the thugs from carrying their guns.
Well,
and
you
so
may be right, but
you're
less
actually going to be less safe. You're actually more safe when you have people who are packing. So if someone does do something crazy, there will be hopefully a response to put them down before too much damage is done. Now you're totally dependent on law enforcement getting to an area and stopping whatever's going on in time. But good luck with that. I hope nothing happens. But yeah, I still think it's a bad ruling that opens the door for cities to violate state law. So the law is very simple and what it covers and what it says. And if they didn't like the language of the law, they should have dealt with that when the law is being in the legislature, when the law is being proposed. Not after the law has been signed into law, do you now want to fight against it because it goes against your safety rules. So what's our next story, Tom?
All right, Jimmy, next story, and this is actually one that we were planning to discuss last week, ran out of time, Jimmy, and that is the high-profile Diddy case, Sean Puffy Diddy, 20 other names that he's used throughout his career. Combs, of course, most people, unless you were hiding under a rock, know that he was taken into federal custody in New York City following a grand jury indictment a couple of weeks ago on September the 16th. Combs has been caught in a scandal, literally, since last year in November when his former girlfriend, R&B singer Cassie Ventura, filed a lawsuit alleging sexual and physical abuse. Combs has been charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, fraud, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs, 454, has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. He was denied bail, however, and so he's going to be sitting for a while and will remain in federal detention. In March, the FBI raided his Los Angeles and Miami homes due to ongoing sex trafficking allegations. In May, a video from the 2016 event with his girlfriend, now former girlfriend, surfaced with him attacking Ventura in a hotel hallway. He later released a public apology. We talked about that on this show. According to a new lawsuit that literally just happened within the last few days, Jimmy, that was filed on Tuesday in New York, that's yesterday, another accuser, Thalia Graves, alleges Combs and his bodyguard drugged and assaulted her in 2001, then filmed the attack. The earlier indictment, the original accuses Combs of leading a criminal organization with other associates and employees, alleging that he hosted drug-fueled escapades with victims and male sex workers, including physical and sexual abuse. He has been also accused of 10 civil lawsuits alleging a range of sexual
Well,
misconduct.
11 now. There's another victim who's come forward, a young lady.
Gotcha. This has been
So,
going on for a while, Jimmy, and this is on everybody's news reel. And this obviously is very important to America. We talked about, of course, the R. Kelly case and all the drama that ensued from that last year, and now it's Diddy.
well, Tom, R. Kelly had the benefit of being tried in state court where you may get a good prosecutor, you may not. I mean, he was able to have some success against the state before they finally convicted him. Unfortunately, it's not to be said for the same thing at the federal level. There's a reason why the Department of Justice and the whoever the state AG is, they win about 98%, 98.5% of their cases because they gather up evidence. They have unlimited budgets. They can investigate something till they're pretty sure that they're going to get a conviction, and then they issue the arrest warrant and go pick you up. So the best thing that Puffy can do, he can try to put together an all-star legal team and go that route, but the chances are of him winning in federal court are slim and none. Very few people actually go in the federal court and actually beat back the government. And then having a bunch of lawsuits, civil suits that are going to expose you now because there are going to be things and testimony that's going to come out in those civil trials. And you can't settle all of them now at this point because some of those people are going to be witnesses. And to make any attempt to settle with them, to not to testify, is going to equate out to witness tampering. So he's pretty much trapped. And what are the chances that his bodyguard or others around him, the other people who've been involved in this enterprise, like the Steve Harveys of the world, the T.D. Jakes, aren't going to cut some kind of deal and testify and stay out of jail and testify against them? So the best thing, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not trying to offer legal advice, but if I were, my only advice to Puffy would be go ahead and cut a deal. See who you can testify against, who may be a bigger fish, and to get as light a sentence as you could possibly get, and then move on with your life. Serve your time, and then move on with your life. It's pretty much over with.
Well, Jimmy, this is a very nuanced and unfortunate situation for the victims, the alleged victims, excuse me, primarily, and then obviously someone who has had a great deal of influence and power in the entertainment industry. You know, there are a couple of thoughts that I have on this. And before I go to that, there were a couple of notes that I have in here from Ms. Curl said, "Are you not seeing my answers?" And I think that was referring to the music contest. We did not see any responses from Ms. Curl prior to you asking if we are not seeing your answers. So I don't know if, for whatever reason, it didn't come through, but we did not, unfortunately, see any responses, Ms. Curl. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there. So just wanted to let you know or respond to you so we won't lose sight of what you got. So all that saying, going to Diddy, you know, one thing I will say is when you have, with a few exceptions, black men who get a certain amount of power, probably the most probably the most well litigated case probably in U.S. history. You had OJ. Of course, some years ago, you had Cosby. Some people call him Cos. Of course, R. Kelly, you know, a couple of years ago. Even lighter cases where you have men who have become extremely powerful and influential, Jimmy. You have to be real careful once you reach a certain level of power and influence because trust, people are going to be coming after you. And in this case, you got to keep your slate clean. For Diddy in particular, I believe he's going to do some time. I believe that, and I want to say it's been a little bit over a year or so ago. I remember something coming out about Diddy going after some companies because of a liquor business that he was in. And you have to be real careful about who you go after because even though you may be powerful and influential, there are people who are more powerful and more influential. So you have to be very careful about who you're going to pick on. And then also you have to make sure that your house is clean when you're going to be doing certain things, and especially if you happen to be melanated and kissed by nature's sun. So in this case, there is no excuse or exception for the alleged activities that he's involved with. And there's a lot of evidence that are coming after him right now. And there is no one that is too powerful to be taken down. So if you're not playing ball with the right people, if you are not kissing the ring, I won't go into all of that, then you're subject to go down hard.
Well, Tom, it just goes to show that corrupting people is not about color. It's just simply about money and power and people who take advantage of that. But they have the videotapes. Even for people who don't come forward, they have a lot of videotapes showing young boys and young girls who are underage, even though they may consent and being paid to be there to have sex with the freak party. They're still underage, so they're still statutory rape at that point. And when you are passing girls around and young boys around, like I said, you made the mistake of videotaping all these activities to hopefully use as leverage against the people who are in the tapes. But now you've created a situation where you basically offer the government all the evidence they need to convict you. So start making a deal, start singing like a canary, and save yourself, get yourself the best deal you can, do your time, and move on with your life afterwards. That was my best advice to them.
There are a couple of folks that you don't want showing up in your door. One is 60 Minutes. The other one, of course, is the FBI. Probably the third is the IRS. And I mean showing up at your door. So I think you're right. If, he starts singing and he's got the right people in his Rolodex, then, yeah, they may go a little bit light on him. But I think he's going to get some time. We have a couple of comments on the chat line. Let me see. We got Brother Freddie Roberts. I knew this was coming. Gloria Allred had to get her wide reach into this case. We've got Mr. Wayne. He's being investigated by SDNY. This is the office that brought down the Mafia and FIFA. Let me see. Miss Marion Square. Allegedly, a deal has been presented. They seem to give info on someone else. Exactly. If you start blowing the whistle and the whistle is pointing to the right people, yeah, you might get some grace. Rock groups have been seen doing parties like him. That's another thing, Jimmy, that, okay, let me see here, Wayne. There are a lot of people who could testify against him and some people who he could use for leverage in a deal. His Hamptons White Party was well known as to what happened. But let's be very clear, Jimmy. We're talking about the entertainment industry. And I don't know if there are many of you who are very familiar with the entertainment industry. It is cutthroat. It is wide open. Those who are in the entertainment industry, this is very common, and especially for people who are very wealthy, and uber powerful. It's just when things like this come out, people are somewhat shocked, and that's primarily coming from folks who really do not have any visibility into the entertainment industry. Obviously, the higher up you go up the food chain, the more you're going to be into, and the more you can potentially be held accountable, Jimmy. But, some of the stuff that you're going to read and that has already come out barely scratched the surface of what's going on, whether we're talking about film, music, athletics. It's all over the place, Jimmy. And unless you are in this community, you have no idea the extent of what happens.
Yeah, Tom, and the problem here is that it's not that other people don't do these things and have these kind of parties. They happen with the rich and famous celebrity types. The thing is that you need to make sure that everyone is a consenting adult who's engaged in what your parties and you pay. If you're paying them for entertainment or to have sex, then you kind of get careful because there is a chance that you can be considered a madam or that you're organizing sex parties for some kind of gain, financial gain, to get a deal done or to influence people. So that is a form of compensation also, which means that you are now trafficking in sex. So you got to be careful to make sure that you don't cross legal line. And then definitely You do not involve underage kids, young boys, teenage girls in these activities who are highly impressionable, who are trying to break into the industry, will do almost anything to get a break and to open some doors. And now you are taking advantage of them from being underage. So if he's guilty, Tom, then he needs to be punished, him and all the rest. But a lot of this could have been avoided by just exercising a little common sense and not being stupid. But a lot of these people, from Bill Cosby to R. Kelly, Bill Cosby drugging people. There are lots of women out there that he can pay that will gladly be drugged and let you have sex with them as long as your check clears or you have money on the nightstand. And then R. Kelly was dealing with these young underage girls, their parents pimping them out, knowing that he likes young. All these cases, Tom, I have no sympathy for any of them. I don't care how much time they get. I don't care how much of their fortune they lose, because what they're doing is absolutely wrong. And simply to say that other people do it, or white people do it, or rock and roll bands do it, is not an excuse.
I'd agree. And, there's a lot more to come out, Jimmy. It depends on how fast he's willing to do a deal and how many folks he's willing to give up.
Okay. Well, Tom, we're a little bit past the midway point. Do you want to go ahead and do our movie now, and
Go
then
ahead and do the music, and given the amount of time, because it's about 8:40, we can probably skip. We can defer on the movie until next week, because we still have a couple of shows, and we're almost at a quarter until the hour.
all right? Well, here's our second song. Same rules apply, people. Here we go.
No place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, then make a change.
All right, we got 30 seconds for folks to get in their responses. And folks, just as an FYI, it looks like there may be one of a couple of folks. I don't know if there was something going on with the chat line. Responses were getting slow, but we want to basically make sure we go in the order that we see things coming in. So. All right. We have got our responses in, and it looks like the first person to get the name right was Uncle Asar, and the first person to get the official record or the official name of the song was Miss Marion Square. We got a couple of folks who were very close second. Looks like Miss Carol came in right after. Uncle Asar did. And looks like Mr. Vincent Stokes came in right after Miss Marion did. And then Seth L. came in just after them. So it was a very close race, but let me make sure I get this down so I won't forget about it. It is Uncle Asar and Mary. All right. And we're going to hopefully, I don't know what's going on with the chat line. It looks like some folks may have a few issues getting in. I do have folks coming in on the chat line. There were a couple of folks who were having a challenge jumping in on the chat line. So hopefully we can get that remediated pretty soon. Not exactly sure what the issue is there. So it is right at a quarter until the hour, Jimmy. Let's go ahead and get on to our next story. We're going to try to go ahead and make sure we keep it in the hour. We know the last couple of shows we got into a lot of good stories, and we went a little bit over, so we're going to try to keep the content and the stories within an hour. So, all right, Jimmy, let's get to another story that's been pretty heavy in the news lately. There was a brother in the state of Missouri who was just executed last night. There were several attempts to try to get a stay on the execution, but the state of Missouri has, and yesterday, executed Marcellus Williams, who was charged in the 1998 murder of a former newspaper reporter. He has maintained his innocence and is now the third inmate executed in Missouri this year, 2024, and the 15th in the United States. Williams, 55, was convicted for the August 11th, 1998 murder of Leisha Gale, a former police reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, killed during a burglary at her St. Louis home. No DNA connected Williams to the crime, however. Of course, back then, DNA was not used as much as it is today. The deceased family, that is, Leisha Gale's family, actually said that Marcellus' execution should not happen. But Missouri Governor Mike Parson and the Missouri Supreme Court denied clemency. So therefore, the execution went through. With less than an hour before the execution, the Supreme Court of the United States also declined to stop the execution without explanation. Williams was convicted in 2001 of first-degree murder, burglary, and robbery in Gale's slaying. A suspect was not immediately named by May of 1999. The next year after the case, Gale's family then announced a $10,000 reward for information, leading to an arrest and conviction in the case. At the time of this conviction, Williams had just started a 20-year prison sentence for robbing a downtown St. Louis donut shop. 20 years for robbing a donut shop. That seems a bit much to me. Anyway, not long after Williams was arrested, based upon testimony from a jailhouse witness who told police that Williams confessed that he killed Gale while they spent time incarcerated together, his girlfriend also pinned him. Williams' attorneys argued in the case that the informant stood to benefit from their cooperation because of the $10,000 reward, and that their stories sometimes changed and conflicted with other details about the murder. A stay of execution, otherwise postponement of execution, was ordered by then Governor Eric Graydon, who appointed a board of inquiry to look into the case. During the summer of 2023, newly sworn in Governor of Missouri Parsons dissolved that board and lifted the stay. The court, ultimately, Parsons said, would decide his fate, and the Missouri Supreme Court issued a third execution warrant for Williams to be executed. On August 21st, court prosecutor Wesley Bell's office and Williams' attorneys reached an agreement allowing Williams to enter a new no-contest plea to first-degree murder in exchange for life in prison without parole. The victim's husband, that is the murdered victim's husband, Daniel Pikus, signed off on the plea. Although Bell moved to overturn Williams' murder conviction, State Attorney General Andrew Bailey argued it should stand and ordered St. Louis County Circuit Judge Bruce Hilton, who accepted the plea, to hold an evidentiary hearing on the matter. During the August 28th evidentiary hearing, the retired prosecutor who handled the original case admitted evidence was mishandled in the 1998 trial that could have actually exonerated Williams. But on September 12th, Hilton declined to vacate Williams' conviction and sentence, despite questions about DNA evidence on the knife used in the attack. In the appeals, his defense produced evidence that the DNA taken from the knife that killed the deceased revealed an unknown male profile, but did not match Williams. After Parson rejected one of the last bids to halt the execution, the governor released a statement saying no jury nor court, including the trial, appellate, and Supreme Court levels, have found merit in Williams' innocence claims.
Okay, so what's the story here, Tom?
The story is, we've talked a lot in past in past shows about men who've done time for crimes they didn't do.
But this is not one of them, Tom.
Wait a minute. We've also talked about how the use of DNA evidence has actually gotten a lot of these
That is true.
men off. And so this is a case.
This is not one of them.
Jimmy, this is a case where the actual evidence of the murder from the prosecutor admitted that it was mishandled. It also shows that the DNA on the murder weapon did not match Williams.
Okay, Tom. So let me just chime in here with my limited knowledge.
Okay, chime in with your limited knowledge.
So the fact that you have some skin cell evidence on the knife does not mean that you did not kill someone. It just
No.
means someone else may have handled the knife in addition to yourself, or maybe you were careful enough to put a glove on during the execution. The thing that, and then the other issue is appeals are not for introducing new evidence. And we have some lawyers who follow our channel. They can chime in here. The appeal process is not to introduce new evidence. Very seldom is new evidence ever allowed into an appeal. And for a murder conviction with a death sentence, the first conviction is automatically appealed. That's automatic. So he lost on 2 appeals up to the Supreme Court that found no error in the trial. And if you want to introduce evidence to your innocence, then you introduce it at the trial, not at the appeal. So that was mistake number 1. The other thing, Tom, is what convicted him overall was that he had the murder victim's purse and her laptop. This is a burglary. So you're in possession of items that belong to the murder victim, and you had no explanation for it. At the trial was the time to introduce whatever you want to introduce as to how you found it, how you came into being, how it became in your possession, and to try to escape a conviction on really faulty DNA evidence. Now, the knife may have been mishandled. Maybe it wasn't tested properly. Maybe there was someone else's DNA on the knife. So what? You're still with the smoking gun, which is the purse and the laptop, with no explanation.
But does the purse and the gun implicate that he actually murdered?
No, Tom. It means that you don't have circumstantial evidence. People get convicted.
It may be circumstantial, but does a purse and a laptop say that he murdered her?
It shows that you have something that belongs to the murder victim that you shouldn't have had, with no explanation as to how you.
Well, there's a difference between a robbery and a murder.
Okay, well, I believe the theory goes, or the jury convicted on, that she was murdered at the time that she was robbed. And so if you are sitting there, there's no eyewitness, just the 2 of you or 3 of you. It doesn't matter. And even if someone is being robbed and you have an accomplice and the accomplice kills the person that you're robbing, you participate in the robbery, but you didn't participate in the murder, you're still guilty of felony murder.
And there is nothing that says he participated in the robbery. It said it had her articles. There's nothing that said he participated in the robbery.
Well, once again, Tom, no explanation for how you came into possession of her possession. She was killed at the time that she was robbed. That was the belief, because she wasn't robbed before, and then days later someone killed her, or she was killed and then days later someone stole her laptop. The belief is that those 2 events happened at the same time. And if you're in possession of those things,
but cases aren't settled by beliefs.
It is, Tom. That's exactly what cases are settled by.
So just forget evidence.
You don't have an eyewitness here. You don't have.
So forget evidence.
That is the evidence. Circumstantial evidence is still evidence, even though it's circumstantial.
Even if the weapon that murdered the deceased does not have anything that identifies him on it.
Tom, if I wear a glove, then and you touch the weapon,
if there's somebody
your skin DNA may be on the weapon. But mine may not, because I wore a glove. That doesn't mean that I didn't kill someone. It just means that my DNA evidence is not on the weapon.
Agreed. But we would say this.
But that wasn't what convicted him. DNA evidence is not what convicted him. If it was, then it would be different. What convicted him is that he was in possession of a person who was murdered, of her items, with no explanation, nothing offered at trial to say this is how someone gave this to me. It was mailed to me. I was walking down the street and some guy ran by and said, "Hey, here, take this." No explanation, Tom. So that's what the jury convicted him on. That was what was taken up at appeal. That the appeal court found that there was no mistakes in the jury, in the judge's rendering, in the prosecution. There was no exculpatory evidence withheld from the defense. And then the state Supreme Court looked at the trial records, looked at the appeal record, and determined that there were no mistakes made there either. So the conviction had to stand. If there was any explanation as to how you came in possession of these things, which is what convicted you, it should have been offered at the trial. It wasn't. So what is the jury supposed to do? That's the only evidence they have to consider. is that you're in possession of items that belong to a person who was murdered. What else are they supposed? There's nothing else to consider at that point.
Okay, I'm going to speak.
Okay.
All right. So, given and with respect to everything you said, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. However, if you have the possibility of murdering or state-sanctioned murder of an innocent man, and if you have specific evidence, not the smoking gun, but the bloody knife that has somebody else's DNA on it, which would probably implicate somebody else, not the person who you're about to execute, then there is a decision as to whether, and I get your point in terms of the appeals process, but at the end of the day, if you have the bloody knife in your hand that stabbed someone several times, and it's in somebody else's fingerprint, not the person that you're about to execute, then there's a possibility that you are going to be murdering a man who did not commit that specific crime. All that being said, Jimmy, is that they did this obviously because they could. I get it. I understand that things were probably mishandled because it was actually admitted by some of the people who were involved with the original case, who said that there were some things that were mishandled. And then, of course, given that we are using DNA in order to identify murders with a high degree of accuracy, and when you find the murder weapon and it has somebody else's DNA, not the person that you're about to murder, then yeah, that takes some consideration. So if you are about to murder potentially an innocent man, then yeah, that requires additional consideration.
Okay, Tom. I think additional consideration was offered and was provided. But like I said,
there was no additional consideration.
Someone else's DNA on the weapon does not exonerate him from being the murderer. Or if you had an accomplice, someone there with you, then you should have sung. You should have turned over on him. You should have told who actually committed it. If your life is on the line and you're the one sitting there in court being charged with this, and this is the theory of the prosecution that you killed this person and robbed them, and you say, well, no, it wasn't me, it was Tommy. Well, you should have gave Tommy up. But the fact that
maybe he didn't know who it was to kill him.
Okay, Tom. If someone, then here's the other point, Tom. It really, in the bigger picture, it really doesn't matter, because if you commit a felony,
except for the fact that an innocent man could have been
in the commission of a felony, which burglary or theft with a weapon, which you can easily say is assault and battery with a deadly weapon, is murder, murder 1, murder 2, murder 3. You can put whatever felony charge you want on it, coupled with the burglary, makes it a felony murder. So it doesn't matter if you did it or not. If you're there, if you're committing one of the felonies, which is the burglary, you only took the personal laptop. I had nothing to do with the killing. It still doesn't matter because someone died during the commission of a felony. That's felony murder. You're still on the hook for the charge.
It doesn't matter if you got the wrong guy.
Tom,
okay. Well, let me finish. I'll let you.
Go ahead. You keep saying the wrong guy. What is if two people?
You got
10 people there.
If you got the wrong guy, it does matter.
Tom, no, legally it does not matter. There's a famous case here in Dallas,
Jimmy. If you have killed an innocent man, it does.
There's a famous case here in Dallas where a guy was just a driver of a car in a bank robbery. But during the bank robbery, the guard pulled his gun out, shot at the robbers. The bullet ricocheted and hit one of the people in the bank. That person died. Those 3 guys were all charged with felony murder because during the commission of a crime, which is bank robbery, somebody died. That's the murder piece. During the commission of a robbery, somebody died, which is this woman. It doesn't matter if he committed the killing or not, whether his DNA is on the weapon. Someone died, Tom. And if someone else did it besides him, he should have told who did it.
Someone died.
Okay, so if he didn't do it, he should have told who did it. And if he don't know,
if he didn't know who did it, he couldn't tell.
Then he should have still said somebody else. That's a defense.
But he has proclaimed his innocence throughout the entire time, Jimmy.
Innocence is not explaining how you got
I understand if he is proclaimed. Now there are a lot of people.
I'm innocent.
Jimmy, there are a lot of people
in prison claiming to be innocent.
Well, honestly, but no, there are a lot of people who are on death row and they say, you know what, forgive me for the sin that I've done, and then
Okay, if he's innocent, then tell what happened in a plausible way that people can believe it and understand it. How you came in possession of this person's purse and her laptop. And if you didn't do it, hey, somebody else was there. I don't know who it was, but I just took the laptop and the purse. I didn't kill the person. You're still going to get charged with felony murder. You're still going to end up where you are.
Right.
But he
and that was what they were. That's
he
what they
offered
were.
no explanation, Tom, into evidence at trial. He offered no explanation. You have the opportunity to defend yourself. You have the opportunity to say, hey, here's what we think happened. You can put forth your own theory, bring forth evidence to back up your theory, just like the prosecution. You only focus, you keep saying this person's innocent, but they're not innocent because he's in possession.
What I am saying, what I am saying is there is based upon what we do know, there is a somewhat decent chance that this man may be innocent of the murder of that woman. I'm not saying that he's nowhere involved with anything. What I'm saying is there is, based upon the evidence that we are seeing now, that he was not the person who murdered this young lady. That's
he may not.
But with that being said, Jimmy, it is now 9 o'clock.
While she was being murdered, then he's just as guilty.
Okay, Jimmy. That's fine. I'll let you have that one. We are out of time because it is 9 o'clock.
We go a few minutes over. Do we have another interesting story, or is that pretty much it?
No, we're going to push him out because we got a couple of interesting stories.
No, because next week is actually going to be a jam-packed show. Also,
I understand, but we don't have time. But we're gonna start keeping these shows to an hour.
Okay. So with that being said, go ahead and give the last word, and we'll close the show out.
All right, folks. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We hope that you got some value out of this show. I was actually expecting.
And actually, before we close out, Tom, did anybody offer an opinion as to what they thought, innocent or guilty?
No.
On the chat line?
No.
Nobody.
No.
All these lawyers that we have, and nobody offered an opinion.
Maybe there's something wrong with the chat line. I don't know, but nobody has said anything about the what their take is on the murder. So maybe there is something going on either way. But we do want to thank everyone. For joining us this evening, and we are going to commit to making sure that we get this done efficiently. And of course, join us next Wednesday because, of course, if it is Wednesday night,
it's certainly Black Man Speak.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.